It is a blueprint. It is a morphogenetic field of instruction set. It is the first level of the crystal body in its creation before the creation became distorted and broken down and fragmented to experience the various levels of dimensionalization. So at this level of consciousness, again, is really what the goal of the third dimensional human is to first ascend and be able to be liberated from the reincarnational wheel of the lower form world, and to move into experiences that are more soul-based or infused or oversoul-based or monadic-based in terms of our consciousness. Now, the guardian point of view is that the third dimensional human has been perpetrated to some extent in terms of suppressing consciousness from its natural biological ability in through the experience of this particular time-space vector. This is why Indigos, the guardian races, and starseeds have agreed to come back into this time structure, even when they didn't have to exist within this time structure, to actually assist in the lost and fragmented souls that have been stuck here in the reincarnational wheel for eons of time. The ascension is the opportunity to allow humongous amounts of consciousness, trapped souls, fragments that have existed in these time and spaces for an extremely long period of time. This is, in the opinion and information of the Guardian Races and Sirian Council, is the prime objective of all indigo races and why indigo souls are here on this planet at this time. So most of the indigos, indigo and starseed races, hold a 12-strand DNA energy template. And do I have proof of this? No. I can only share with you the information through which I have experienced as a truth in my own journey of ascension and working with many beings in this particular field of energy. And of course, what has been explained to me as a part of the purposes of our creation at this time. So the indigo races, the reason why we are here is we keep the 12-strand DNA genetic possibility alive in the species. Because at this point of evolution and consciousness, this human species has completely lost contact with its soul and its oversoul level of identity, of divinity. So as we come into this realm, the indigo and starseed races, we hold something called a silicate matrix. This matrix is, again, a fully formed crystal body of 12-strand DNA potential. Now this is, of course, as if we, at this time, many indigos and beings that are of the star races that come back, we are subject to the same laws, physics, and energy attributes of creation as everyone else here. So what that means is we have a propensity to wake up before others, but we still have to wake up. And so that means we're not given any special privileges because we hold this genetic ability. And of course, it has nothing to do with value. It just has everything to do with purpose and what we are contributing to into the whole of creation and evolution for not only the human species, but for many other time matrices and life streams that aren't even in our particular awareness at this time. So as we are embodying a 12-strand DNA genetic prototype, we keep this alive in the human race, root race cycles of evolution. So what they're describing is that the human race now is in its 5th root race cycle. And we are also, there's several cycles converging at this time. One of them, when I use the word ascension, there's also a lot of other words commonly used, like in the Mayan calendar prophecies that talk about 2012. We are ending a cycle of 26,556 years. And out of those 26,000 years, what happens is one revolution around the galactic center. And when we align our planetary energy with the galactic center, the Stargate portals that open to all of the 12 dimensions in this system start to open. That's what the ascension is. It is the opening of the Stargate portals that hold the identities of us in place. Because when these Stargates start to open, what that means is dimensional qualities of energy start to feed into this planetary system that have never been here before. So, and they describe that where we're at in the human evolution cycle right now is beyond any place we've actually accomplished at this particular biological, like say, consciousness level. So we're actually moving into what they refer to as a new era in human consciousness. And those of you that have read my newsletters or have been kind of like following the Ascension B timeline may or may not know this, but this is one of the things that I've attempted to kind of relay, is that in March we went through something that I refer to as a multidimensional intersection, and what they are describing is that the 14th dimension acts as the 8th dimension. And when you start to understand more about our cosmology, the 8th dimension is the galactic center. It's the center of our universe. So this is created just for purposes of understanding kind of a linear time-space of how the dimensions work. But actually our universe is like a large toroid that folds in on itself. And in the center of that toroid is the 8th dimension, and is the center of our time matrix, is the galactic center. The galactic center of the 8th dimension is where all consciousness comes into form. So in terms of into dimensionalization, into form, everybody's got to come in through the 8th dimension originally to actually have experience into the time-space fabric here. To get into the 3rd dimension, we had to come into the 6th in terms of indigo. The beings that were trapped here would have incarnated in cycles over time, anywhere entering from the 3rd or 4th levels. And the 4th level is the astral plane. So again, these are lower levels in terms of, and when I say lower, it's just a way of describing it, but because again, there is no value difference. But at this level of consciousness, the human being is still in suffering, is still completely unaware of its spiritual purpose, or that it's a multidimensional God being. So this is considered a lower form world again. And so the process of our evolution as consciousnesses and beings is ultimately to be freed of suffering, to feel our connection and at one-ment with all things. And this is something that is more commonly experienced in the higher realms of creation. So many of the starseed and indigo races were actually home to these higher centers. And so for many of us, it was very challenging to come back into what would be perceived as limitation to a consciousness that had already transcended density at this level. So there's a lot of different issues in terms of the indigo, and I call it the starseed blueprint. There's a particular blueprint that many of us embodied in terms of feeling more alienated from the human race, or possibly feeling a little bit foreign in our physical body systems because we felt kind of entrapped in a biology that seemed way too small for the bigness that we are in terms of our consciousness. So there's a lot of different, and I'll talk about that at another time, but just to kind of understand the indigo relationship, the soul relationship to the ascension and evolution and genetic process of evolving the human species, to understand that as a whole, instead of, I think right now, sort of most of the discussions around indigo, they really don't talk about the relationship that indigo has to the ascension process. Most of the information that I hear people discussing about indigo children is that it's a phenomena that nobody really understands why these children are here. Well, they're here directly to anchor genetic coding and frequency, and a level of consciousness to assist the balance of consciousness that has been, again, sort of lost in periods of reincarnation down here in the lower form world. So this particular model, again, is to help us understand a basic cohesive type of process of a dimensionalized system, of a process of evolution through, again, a dimensionalized time matrix, and understanding the various levels that we exist as multidimensional God beings. In terms of soul, we have 12 soul extensions. We also have 12 oversouls as well. So each one of us has 143 other soul extensions going on in simultaneous time, all participating into the mass of what the group collective purpose is in human evolution at this time. So that's another mind-bending kind of thing too. So a part of our process here is to collect ourselves, literally integrate aspects of our identity into this now moment, because what's happening now that is so critically important is that the ascension is happening in this time field. That means that what we do here and now changes the future. And that's why we come all the way to the densest level of the time matrix to actually accomplish what we're here to accomplish. Because what we change here will change the future of the human race. And that's pretty profound. At this time, I'm going to be really honest with you in terms of what has been expressed through me. It's very important that you learn better in terms of energy discernment and again feel what is in truth to you as a being. This information again is fully for your empowerment and to help assist in understanding the various agendas that are on the planet at this time and why there are so many ET races and beings that are involved in this ascension cycle right now. And that is that, to be quite honest about it, the fifth dimensional Earth has been invaded by Zeta and by negative, particular aliens or extraterrestrials that have now thwarted kind of human evolution at a certain level. So as we go through the ascension process, we're not doing a stair-step ascension by using this model. We're actually going to be using an inward ascension process where we are connecting into a different Earth system entirely. So what's interesting right now is we're going through almost laying a whole new template for the human species in its evolution period. So I think on a lot of levels, many of us can feel cellularly that something huge is going on, but we don't quite have a languaging in terms of what that is going to look like. So the interesting thing is this is just not about human ascension, it's also about all the entities that interact with us. And the interesting thing is that we still don't know that they exist. So it's really quite funny that we've been in this level of consciousness for quite a long time, and the understanding of our cosmology and our history, the human species connection to star races and to all kinds of other levels of consciousness has really been hidden from the human race for quite a long period of time. So whether we start to see more of that influxed awareness happening during this time, this is one of the things they're saying, is that we're going to start to have more disclosure where there is more awareness or information available that our government and that there is, extraterrestrial involvement and that they've known this for a long time. But again, we'll see what that looks like in terms of our level here. Who knows what's going to happen at that level. But there does seem to be, I would say, the fact that they speak to me a lot more about galactic emissary work and preparing groups of us to have more interaction with various races of beings kind of tells me that that's probably one of the things that may be on the agenda in the future for the human race. And that may happen in the 2012 time cycle or may not. We're kind of in the final countdown, as you know. We're only a few years away from that. And so we're having right now kind of a bit of a showdown where the forces that are resistant into moving into a new energetic space are still kind of, again, resistant. And this is kind of a lot of what we're seeing also played out in the structure of our global arena. Basically, in one way to kind of sum it up, is the third dimensional Earth is involved in a power conflict. There is a huge war over the power and resources of this planet, and it's not only coming from the governments and the power elite, it's coming from the interdimensional planes as well, of various beings that are seeking to have control over the resources of the planet Earth. And when you think about it, it really kind of makes a lot of sense because the human race certainly isn't utilizing its power resources very well. We're not living in harmony with ourselves. We're seeing a lot of issues happening and how we've been working with treating the earth and nature through global warming, a lot of the things that are happening on the planet right now. And these are all signs that we have been living out of harmony with ourselves, with the true nature of our being. We've been living out of harmony with each other. We are the guardians. We were originally intended to be the guardians of this planet and to utilize its resources and protect it, and we're not doing that good of a job. So in a lot of ways, because we're asleep at the wheel, there are energies that are manipulating us, and that's kind of what we're seeing on a lot of different levels of the micro and macro.